All right. Well, welcome to today's webinar. That's a wrap, creating and editing video files with Adobe Premiere, and it will be presented by Patrick Rodriguez. All right, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce MicroDesk and our speaker. MicroDesk is a design technology consultancy that combines the leading software tools from Autodesk, Oracle, Google, Adobe, and ESRI with the latest methods, including building information modeling, visualization, and virtual design and construction to provide business and technology consulting services to help companies successfully plan, design, build, and operate land and buildings. MicroDesk has 11 offices nationwide and offers training courses on leading design software and applications for professionals in media, television, and entertainment in the Los Angeles, California area. For more information, you should visit www.microdesk.com. MicroDesk maintains deep working relationships with the industry-leading manufacturers of software technologies. As a result, we provide access to the most comprehensive set of solutions to support the entire project process. We're an Autodesk Gold partner. Our other industry-leading partners include Trimble, Oracle, ESRI, and Bluebeam, amongst others. In this session, we'll explore some of the new features in Adobe Premiere Pro that will save you time and prevent headaches. See how its tighter integration with After Effects and the new digital cinema package for Screening Room allows you to work faster with more flexibility, as well as provide several new project delivery options. Whether you're an amateur or a professional video editor, you will hopefully leave the session with some insight into several new tools and techniques that will make the final cut on your next editing project. Presenting today's session, we have with us Patrick Rodriguez. Patrick is a media and entertainment solution specialist based out of MicroDesk's Los Angeles office. He provides training and consulting to support clients' visualization processes and workflows. Patrick is committed to sharing his knowledge and passion for art and film by teaching and lecturing at Studio Arts, the Costume Designers Guild, Art Center, and the Art Directors Guild. His experience began with VFX pre-production and today extends into concept illustration and design, storyboards, modeling, rigging, texturing, rendering, animation, layout, animation, and more. He previously worked for several large film studios, including DreamWorks, Lucasfilm, South Park, Sony, and Marvel Studios. Some of his credits include Star Trek, Iron Man 2, Cowboys and Aliens, Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor. So just a few logistics before we begin. In order to minimize any background distractions, you are all on mute. If you have any questions, please type them into the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen. Patrick will address as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. But if we run out of time, we'll provide you with our contact information so you can follow up with us. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Patrick.
Hi, this is Patrick Rodriguez. And I am presenting Premiere Pro. As some of you may know, Adobe Max is going on. So, you know, if you want to learn about a lot of the new features as well, there's a lot of stuff on their website. What I'm going to try to do today is give you a unique sort of view of how Premiere Pro can be useful to quite a lot of different people and industries. So I have a few examples that I'd like to show, and I think they're going to illustrate, I'm going to talk you through them, what you can do with Premiere Pro. I think it's obvious to a lot of people what they want to do with it, but it is informative to see what other people are doing with it and how it can be used throughout the pipeline of your creative endeavor, whether it be animation, film, and TV commercial, whatever it might be. So the first thing I want to kind of show you guys is an example of animatics. I have an interesting example of animatics that I was able to do. Oh, let's see, show my screen. Yes. Where I was able to do some pretty complex animatics. So I have that example here, and it's from Cowboys and Aliens. This is the opening sequence that was not used in the final film, but it's all part of the process that you're working through. So let me just show you that really quickly, and then we can talk about it. Let me just, there we go. So what's unique about this is that this is a live-action film. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Cowboys and Aliens, directed by Jon Favreau. It starred Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. But what's interesting is that that could easily have been just the storyboard and animatics for an animated film. And what's interesting about that is that you can go in and do loose storyboards, and then you can animate them. Now, those storyboards were done by a gentleman named John Mann, and I was the animatic artist on it. I had to create a few illustrations here and there. As you might have noticed, there was some 3D elements. Let's see here, like let's see, there was what's obvious like a 3D element was like this box here that's being tipped over. So I modeled it in Maya and textured it and all of that. But other things were just After Effects tricks. And what's really nice with Premiere, it's been around for a long time, is that you're able to round trip with After Effects. So you could lay in a still image in Premiere on the timeline, and then when you are finished with your animation, or I'm going to be giving you a few more examples, whatever else you're doing, even the final footage, you can, like if it was live action, or the final render if it was 3D, you can then replace that. So you get to see kind of like a work in progress as you're working. So here's an example of, again, with the Cowboys and Aliens. If I scrub to the end here, you'll see that there's some thumbnails here, and interspersed with more cleaned up storyboards. This storyboard artist's name is Ed Natividad. He's a very well-known concept illustrator and storyboard artist. And his work here, you can see, is really rough at this stage, because this is literally where he was just sort of working with the director. But then, as you can see, as we finished more and more parts of the animatic, we were just able to swap them in. And so you can imagine if the director was to say, hey, we really just want this one little section more, we want some more animation there because it's going to make it clearer what's happening. But then maybe if it was, you know, just like a talking head, I mean, mostly you do action sequences with this kind of stuff. But in this case, if it was just a talking head, you may not need any kind of animation at all. So I'll just play you a little bit at the beginning of this, and you can see how far you can take an animatic. You can add in all kinds of shadows and fire and kind of almost look like a stylized finished animation with lighting effects and everything else. And of course, the still images were then replaced. A lot of this was done with just with Premiere. Some examples of that are when we go beyond more of this finished-looking stuff. When you just go to things like this, with this simple pan, it's just taking a long piece of artwork and then moving it. Even that what looked like animation there, sort of, was just simply a couple of images that were reduced at their opacity, and the next image was raised in opacity, and so even like a little parallax there that you see with the camera, you can do this all with Premiere, which is pretty exciting. And then if you need more extensive animation, then you can go on to something like After Effects, and then you can round trip it. I'm going to be giving you an example of that in a little bit here when I get into Premiere. So that's how you could use Premiere with storyboards and then animatics. Another way you can go is to go into from storyboards to pre-visualization. And so this is the pre-visualization that I did for Iron Man 2. So hopefully you can see how Premiere can actually handle anything from like a sketch that then you just time out to music, and then as you are working along, you can replace those sketches with animatics or with pre-visualization. Now the pre-visualization was done in Maya, but it was all edited together with Premiere. At least the way I edited it. Let's see, it was done with Premiere. Now this next example is a layout example, and this would be for like an animated show. And so it started with storyboards, and then I don't think they really did too much animatic type of work, but I'm just going to give you a sample of how you can use editing and whatnot for layout.
Every year on Earth, we come together to test our strength, endurance, and courage in the annual Fall Fest Games. Come on, bud, give us some light. Straight ahead, 12 o'clock! I see them, and they are huge! Men riding dragons.
Now what I did here was the whole thing has been edited in Premiere. Even the screen effect is all done in Premiere. Now that little transition there is all After Effects, and it's almost sometimes confusing to think back and imagine which program I use, because you use them all together: Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere. They work so well together, and they do different things, so you need them. But if you're a storyboard artist and you are laying in just stills, you can time them out to music, and it's really a fast workflow. You can scrub in real time and hear your sound, and you can kind of sync up your visuals to the music. Whereas many other applications that you can do a lot more things in, like even at After Effects, you have to pre-render and pre-render every time you want to listen to the sound. Photoshop is very similar. There's a timeline in there. You can edit to it, but you have to keep rendering in order to listen to sound. Premiere is, I think it's like a lot of different editing applications, but we're talking about Premiere right now. And the point is that you can scrub your playhead and hear the sound. You can hit play and hear the sound, and then you can look at the graphics. And what they do in Premiere is that the visuals will either stutter or they will, kind of play as fast as they can. But the point is that you hear the score that you put in there, or the voiceover, or the acting, whatever it is that you want to put in there. Sometimes we'll put in just sound effects and whatnot. If we're doing a feature film, we don't record all the dialogue or anything like that. But we can get the timing and the pacing and really get the story being told. It's funny, I've done so much editing on a lot of my projects, for personal, but as well as like for features and whatnot. But I wasn't the editor in any way, shape, or form. I was just using an editing tool, and I was editing away. But it's just so useful for so many different positions to be using this application. So this last one, I just want to show you the final commercial. This was done for a little restaurant on spec, for a restaurant called Maggiano's, and my friend Sean Kenny did all of the work here. I was there on the day, and he was trying to help me learn a little bit about how live action production is done, but I was just there, just helping out whatever needed to be done. But again, this is a commercial that Sean Kenny did for. Basically, this is for a viral video, and again, we changed the name here. I'll show you to Nice Bistro, because this was kind of done on spec. But we actually got Chef Beanie from, that's him there, Chef Beanie from Maggiano's. He's the head chef there now, at least around here in Los Angeles area. He's the head chef for a few stores. But I wanted to show you the commercial that I helped with. And then I'm going to show you guys how you can do a few tricks with After Effects to get and Photoshop actually, to get your images working right. So let's take a look at this.
strive to be as good as your grandma's home cooking. So we tested ourselves.
All right. So thanks again, Sean, for letting me use this footage and whatnot. And this little lady was actually our nanny. It was kind of funny for my youngest son, and she agreed to do it. She had the perfect look for it. And so here we go. I just wanted to show you that so then you could see it, because it's always kind of a strange thing to work on something and you're like, no, let me see it real quick before you mess with it. So what I wanted to show you guys is basically three things, but let's start with this grandma approved. This is an interesting dilemma that we run into a lot as either motion graphic artists, or if you're just doing anything with transparency. I run into this in Maya as well, which is interesting. So this isn't just a Premiere problem. But let me just show you what I'm talking about here. If I'm going to turn off the grandma approved here. Let's see, is that this one? This one. Okay, and I'm going to turn on this PNG. And now you can sort of see what's going on. Do you see the white fringe? I hope so. But trust me, if you don't, it's really ugly looking. There's all this white kind of matte that looks all over. And the thing is that Sean did an excellent job of making this PNG, and Premiere supports PNGs. So you should see just a beautifully supported transparency. You should be red and then transparent. But you're getting all this white matte. Now, how to get around that? This is just a great trick that I'm going to share with you guys. In fact, we're going to have to go all the way over to Photoshop to show you how to fix this. So I'm going to open up this PNG. All right, where is it? Here it is. Okay, and here it is. And you can imagine this is the PNG that was used. Now, what's wrong with this PNG? There's nothing wrong with this PNG. It's perfect. It doesn't have any white matte. In fact, I'm just going to make a new layer here. And I'm going to click on the new layer icon. I'm going to fill it with black and drag it below. And you'll see there's no white fringe. Okay. And if I fill the background layer with, white, let's see, where's white? There it is. Then you can see there's no dark fringe either, you see? So I'm talking about this area here. So if I fill this with black, there's no fringe at all. This is a great little graphic. It should be just perfect. But what's the matter? Well, what happens is that there's a transparency problem where the red goes to transparent. And so it's just in those few pixels. The program doesn't know exactly which way to go, whether it should be transparent or not. I'm not sure about all the machinations of it. I'm not a programmer. But I know how to work around it. Okay. So this is what I would do. I'm going to throw away that background. And I'm going to use this transparency. So the first thing I would do is just right-click on it. And no, I'm going to click down here on the Effects tab. And I'm just going to color it, do a color overlay, and to make that color overlay black, because you just want as much contrast as possible. Okay? And then you'll see that I'm just going to go over to my channels. I'll take the blue channel. I'm going to right-click on it, and I say Duplicate Channel. Now I'll type in alpha. It's already highlighted for me. And there's already an invert button down here. So click invert and say OK. Now you'll notice that we have this alpha that's inverted. And so I'll click back on the RGB, turn off my alpha, come back over to layers. And you know how I have that effects. I'll just right-click on this effect and say Disable Layer Effects. I love effects for drawing and whatnot. Whether you're adding a stroke or a color overlay, it makes things a lot easier while you're drawing. If you can't find an object on a layer, or if you have multiple layers and you're getting a little confused, I love those layer effects just for that. I mean, they weren't made for that, but they're just a great little tool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill this whole layer with this red. So hit my eyedropper tool with the I key, tap on the red. It's not working. Oh, maybe that's because I have this effect on. No, it should just work. Let's see here. Aha. Well, maybe it's because of the alpha is selected. Well, I'm going to click on the RGB, so now the RGB is selected. Come back over to the layers, and I should be able to select it. Yes, I selected it as red. That was because when the channels, I had the alpha selected. Okay? Even though I had the alpha selected and I had all the eyedrops there, it was still the selected layer. And alphas are, I don't know if you know this, but they're just black and white. So when I was over here and trying to eyedrop it, all you can get is black and white. But now I'm back on the RGB channels. So I click here, and I get this red. and then I'm just going to fill it with red. Okay? I have a quick key, Option Delete. You can also go Edit Fill and then just pick your foreground color and Edit Fill. So now you're thinking, well, it's all red. Where's the graphic? Well, the graphic's down here in the channels. It's right there. If I turn on the alpha and turn off the thing, it's still there. It's an alpha. And believe it or not, this is the fix. The real trick is that what you need to do is make sure that the red, or if you're doing a shadow and you're using black, or whatever the case may be, any card that you're making, it just needs to be completely covered all the way to the edges of the alpha. So that means this area here. So I don't need to cover the whole thing red, but it just needs to go way beyond where any kind of transparent pixels that are on the fringe that are just a little bit in the gray area are. Okay, so we're basically done. Now all I need to do is save this as a TIFF. All right, and I've already done this, but basically you want to save it as a TIFF. Here's the TIFF I saved earlier, and you just turn off the layers because you don't want any layers in your TIFF. You save it as a copy. You keep You keep the alpha channel and say save. I'm going to cancel this because I already have it. But now I'm going to show you what it looks like in Premiere if you just bring in that same TIFF. So here's the TIFF, and I'm just going to hit the tilde key, and now you can see that there are no white or black little fringe. So that's the trick. It's a great one and something that you will probably be able to use again and again because motion graphics are always being used in this sort of situation. Okay, so now on to a couple of really cool tricks basically it's After Effects Premiere. They're in Premiere and they're in After Effects. So let me explain. What we're going to do here is I'm going to turn on this one. Okay, so Nice Bistro. Okay, so what's happened here is that it's misspelled. Well, how cool would it be if you were able to correct that? So I'm going to click over here in my bin here, my After Effects bin that I made. If I hold down the Command key and click on this up arrow, I can stay within the window. That's a really important trick. If you double-click on a folder, it keeps opening out here. But if you hold down the Command key and double-click on it, you can just go inside. So what you can see here is that I have some folders. This one's are graphics, video, sound, After Effects. Basically, I'm going to click on the After Effects folder, and here I'm going to double-click on this. And what this does is it opens up in this source panel here. Now, if I scrub to the end, you can see it says Nice Bistro. And that's wrong. His name is not Binet, it's Beanie. So what I can do is, you can see under Effects Controls, it says Nice Bistro here. All I've got to do is highlight this E, change it to an I, and hit Tab. And look at that. It changes here, and it changes here. And that's just a really amazing new way that you can blend After Effects and Premiere. So next question you're asking, I'm sure, is, well, couldn't you have just done that in Premiere? Maybe that's your question. Well, the way I animated this is I animated it in After Effects. And I'm going to show you how you can do a little bit more elaborate animation. But the point is just simply I have two keys here on a comp. These in After Effects you use comps, and then you use nested comps sometimes. So here's the nested comp that's inside of that first comp, and this one actually has the text, and it has a background PSD. The background is just that, and then there's the text. Okay. What's nice is that if you make what's called a comp, it's almost like a symbol, and you put it inside of another comp, and then you can just animate that symbol. So literally I have two keys here, one with the opacity 0 and one with the opacity 100%. Okay? And what that means is, conversely, you could have to, if you were in this comp, you would have to animate the text and the background. But instead, I can just change this any way I want, and then I come over here and animate it. So how did I make the text become editable? And that's the trick. What you need to do is, this is the comp that's inside of the other comp. Okay. See it in my project folder here, you'll see there's two comps here. Okay? And there's just the Photoshop and then the original paint that I traced over. Okay. So the Photoshop background. So let's go to this comp. Okay? And I'm going to right-click on it and go to Composition Settings. Now in the Composition Settings, you'll see an Advanced tab. And on the Advanced tab, there's this checkbox that says Template Unlocked Text Layers Editable in Premiere Pro. So you click on OK, and you're almost there. Now, this is something that is a real gotcha. If you have nested comps, the nice thing is that you can edit text in nested comps. Nested meaning that this comp is inside this one. And I'll just show you that this one says Grandma Approved, and this comp, it says Beanie's Bistro logo box comp, that's this. Okay, so that's what I mean by a nested comp. Okay, but this one, because there's two different comps, has to also, I right-click, go to Composition Settings, and go to Advanced, and I also have to check it here. Because if you don't check it in both comps that are affected, then you will run into a situation where you go back over to Premiere and you say, why doesn't this work? So with those two checked, and you use that After Effects file here in Premiere Pro, then you can and make simple changes like that. Okay? So just select that, and then it says here. That's where it shows up. After Effects editable text. Okay? Beanie's Bistro, Beanie's Bistro. All right. So what happens if you have a more complex one? Okay, so here's a little bit more complex one. Maybe this is something you'd want to do in After Effects. I'm just going to hit play. You can kind of see the effect. Beanie's Bistro. Okay, so let's just say you have a really complex one. Well, can you edit that? Well, of course. I mean, that's the whole point, is that you can do all kinds of cool animations in After Effects. Not that this is the coolest, but you can. And then you can edit it as well. So let's check this out. I come over to this other one and double-click on it. By the way, it's really cool. You can just roll over these. You see how you can kind of see the animation. You don't have to even click to scrub. It's called something like mouse over scrub or something. So here it is, Beanie's Bistro. You click on it, and you see over here it says Beanie's Bistro, but it's not. It's misspelled. It's not bistro. It's bistro. So I click here, and I take out the EA and put in an I, Beanie's Bistro. I hit Tab, and it updates here, Beanie's Bistro, and it will update there. As soon as I scrub, you'll see it changes. It might be this one. I may have done a couple of them. Let's see. Okay, so this one is, you can also scrub down here. This one, okay. So this one is not, turns out that this one is not connected, as you can see here. Okay, so we could rectify that by, let's see here, just right-clicking here and saying Edit Original. We'll go over to After Effects. This was something else that I was doing. I'll show you that next thing that's really cool in a minute. That's called pre-rendering. But I'm just going to restore unrendered real quick, and now you can say that you can see that it's spelled right. Okay, so I don't have to redo it anyways. So basically, it worked. In fact, I'll just do this again so you can see it. If I change the Beanie's Bistro to Beanie's Bistro and hit Tab, it should update here. And so everything is happy, and it's working just fine. I'll just click this again and change this back to Beanie's Bistro. Okay, where everything's working just great. Now, so there it is. That's how you can edit text from After Effects in your Premiere Pro file, in your Premiere Pro project, Premiere Pro CC 2014. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is this so cool? Well, if you were doing this kind of viral ad, but you needed to do it in 20 different languages, it would just be really nice to be able to just change it right here in Premiere instead of going all the way back to After Effects over and over again. So you can imagine that's a really good reason why it would be so preferable to be able to do this. And you can work with your motion graphics professional if you don't happen to be an excellent motion graphics person. If you're an editor and you do that full-time and you just need a little bit of motion graphics work done, you can have it done, and then you can ask them to make the text editable, and then you can come and change it here. So next, I'm not having any problems playing. I hope you're not having too many problems watching this webinar, I mean with the video. But what I can do here is, if this animation, if I had a lot of animation going on in After Effects and it wasn't playing smoothly, what you can do is pre-render it, so then you can edit it just like any other video in your Premiere Pro file project. If you right-click on the file, you can just say Render and Replace. So you render it with a video file. In this case, I'm going to be using GoPro Cineform, which is a new codec that I'm going to discuss a little bit more later, but this is one of the features, so I might as well just point it out. And I'll just click OK, and we'll just wait for a few seconds here. Hopefully it won't take too long. All right. And so what it did is it rendered it and put it right next to it. That's why it looks like it went from 3 to 4 here. And then you can scrub through and you can play, and it'll be really smooth. It's just like film. But then you might ask yourself, oh, but is it editable now? And we kind of just showed that a second ago. But it's interesting to kind of show what I'm talking about. Okay, so if I was to say Nice Bistro, like I did before, you can see it changes here, but it doesn't change over here. And the reason why is because if you right-click on your video, you'll see that it says Restore Unrendered. So this is a piece of rendered footage, but all you have to do is click on Restore Unrendered, and it goes back to being an After Effects file. In fact, you can even see it here. It's Nice Bistro. So I'm just going to go back here and change this. But hopefully you're getting the fact that this is a really good way to work. If you had a very complex After Effects animation that had many moving parts, you might want to pre-render it in order to help you edit it easier. All right. So those are the two really great tricks, which are integrating After Effects into Premiere Pro. All right, so the text replace command, those are two great ones. Now there's a couple of codecs, basically. I mean, the digital cinema package is not, it's sort of, I guess you could call it a codec. Let's talk about that for a second. Basically, when you're done with your whole thing and you're ready to export it, meaning turn it into a movie file, you just go to, let's see here, we'll go to our project, and we'll go to File, Export, and we'll export to media. You can see here, this is really cool, Final Cut Pro XML. So you can actually go over and send your project and you could convert your project into something that Final Cut Pro could recognize, which is good. Interchangeability is always good in case you have to. So here you are. I'm in my export dialog box. And right now, all I have to do is go to the format up at the top, come down here to Raptor DCP. Let me back up. I didn't really explain what DCP was. DCP is one of the two codecs that we're going to be talking about, and DCP is for Digital Cinema Package. And what that is it's a format that allows you to send your file directly to the movie theater. So theaters have historically done film, and unbeknownst to us, we don't really pay that much attention unless you have been listening for the film projector spinning around behind your head. But they've been converting over to digital. And so now, from Premiere, you can actually export a file that you could actually send to the movie theater, which is really exciting, especially for any of you indie film makers, or if you're working on a feature and you're going to be in charge of that, or you just want to export that format to show in your producer's in-home movie theater or whatever. Here you go. You just change it to Raptor DCP, and under preset here, you have a couple of choices. We'll probably stick with 24 frames per second because we're in the United States here. And then there's a bunch of different options down here, but in fact, one of the most important really is the queue. So you can actually send this, put this in your queue, which is basically a line, and you can add a bunch of things to that queue. You can add this, you could add your web version for YouTube, and then you could do other things, but then you could render it in the queue, and basically what that frees you up to do is to go back and keep working on your project. Because if you just hit export here, I'll just hit export, it says it already exists. I say yes. Oh, I have to throw that away first. So let's see here. DCP, okay. Now you get more than just I rendered this earlier. You get more than just that's why I was saying I was hedging on the whole codec thing, because you get this sort of stuff. So you get all of the things that a movie theater would need in order to render it. But I'll just throw this away really quick, move to trash. That's the first thing you want to look for if you get errors like I just did. Like if you hit export and it says, oh, I can't do it. It's probably because you've already done it. Even if you canceled it, something was written. So you're overwriting the file. Sometimes they don't overwrite as easy. So here we go, estimated time remaining, 1 minute. And I'm going to cancel this. But basically, you can export your projects to something that a movie theater could use. And the last format that I would talk about is, that I'd like to talk to you about, is the GoPro Cineform codec. Now this is actually a codec. And what it is it's put together by the people over at GoPro, and they have their own video editor. And you use this GoPro Cineform codec, and basically it's a digital intermediary. So basically, when you are downloading your video from your camera, your high-resolution camera, a lot of that information is just so dense, and you have such high resolutions that your computer really can't, no editing software can edit very well in it, not without dedicated hardware. But if you use a digital intermediary, like Cineform, then you can edit in it. In fact, they all do some sort of intermediary. They all sort of do an on-the-fly kind of conversion, so that because you don't need to see it at its highest resolution while you're editing. So GoPro basically has this one that it uses with its software, but it's integrated into Premiere Pro. And I've heard good things about it, and I'll just tell you right now. I'm just going to cancel this real quick. I'm going to remind you that when I did go to render this footage, render and replace, I tried to use, let's see, Quicktime with Apple ProRes, and what you'll see is that it didn't, or it doesn't support the alpha that I need. So you can see how everything's black here, and so if I restore unrendered, and then right-click again and do the render and replace, you'll see that when I use the GoPro Cineform with alpha, I'll just show you that real quick, GoPro Cineform with alpha, and say OK and render, you'll notice that now it supports really beautiful alpha because you can see behind it. So that's it for me today. I hope you've learned something, and I'm going to take a couple of questions. I just have to wake up Megan.
I'm here to switch in the
effect
screen.
on her.
I have been totally paying attention. All right. So if anyone does have any questions, go ahead and put that into the question area of the webinar toolbar. All right. So I have a question for you, Patrick. So are a lot of these features available in the on the desktop version of Adobe Premiere?
Well, basically, no. In the Adobe suite, I think a lot of people have version 6 of a lot of different pieces of software, like Photoshop 6, and it might be Premiere 6. Those were some of the last versions that were desktop only, or yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that basically Adobe has encouraged everyone to go towards the cloud. And so all of their software now is being sold over the cloud, which means that you rent it, basically. You buy it, but after a certain predetermined date, it is turned off. So you can say, I'd like to be re-upped, basically, so whenever this one ends, the next one picks up. But that's the way they've moved to now. But, I get to ask this question all the time, and people sometimes get really scared because they feel like they want to own this application for the rest of their lives, and they want to be able to open this no matter what. And the simple truth is that if you did have a file from 10 or 15 years ago, you probably can't open it now, in all honesty. And some of that is because the computer operating system has upgraded, and it just does not support older files, doesn't recognize them. And applications do that already with the way they used to be sold, which was just on the desktop. So it's kind of a myth that if you had your application for the rest of your life, you'd always be able to open it, unless you hermetically sealed your computer, and you just left it alone and didn't let any dust get in it. And then, but nowadays, if you wanted to, it just doesn't work that way anymore. And not to be an apologizer for Adobe, because I would like to see both. Autodesk is kind of working with both, where they let you do they call it like a permanent buy as well as a cloud version. But Adobe's gone all cloud now.
Well, that's very interesting. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions in here. I do have a few extra resources that will help you if you would like to learn more about today's content and the other things that MicroDesk does. So MicroDesk offers training in our LA office specifically geared towards the media and entertainment industry. So learn how to bring your most creative ideas to life by learning how to use tools by Autodesk, Adobe, Modo, Rhino, SketchUp, and ZBrush. All of our media and entertainment classes take place at our downtown LA location. So if you want to learn more about that, you can see all of our classes, all of our trainers, a lot of fun information about the stuff we're teaching at www.microdesk.com/masterdesign. Here are some of our upcoming classes. If you want to learn more about Adobe Premiere, we're offering a class at the end of October on the 29th. You can sign up for those classes on our website. And again, that's at www.microdesk.com/masterdesign. If you do have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and supply you a few ways to reach us. We're on the web at microdesk.com. If you'd like to email us, our email address is webinars@microdesk.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, which is where we post all of our webinar content. So we will have this posted within the week. That is MicroDesk channel. So I'd like to thank you again for joining us, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day, everyone.